There's a quiet kind of suffering no one talks about. It's not the pain of poverty. It's not the anguish of failure. It's the deep, gnawing ache of mediocrity, of watching your life play out like a watered-down version of the story you once imagined. You wake up, do the same things, think the same thoughts, feel the same buried dread. You wonder why the law of attraction hasn't worked for you. You made the vision board, you whispered the affirmations, but deep down, you still feel stuck, small, insignificant, trapped in a life that doesn't reflect the fire inside you. And here's the truth, that fire is dying, slowly. Every ignored dream, every delayed decision, every morning where you scroll instead of build, that's the slow death of potential. You're not lazy, you're not incapable. You've just been hypnotized by the myth that mindset alone will carry you through, that positive thinking is enough. But let's be real, if the law of attraction worked the way it's sold, every hopeful heart would already be wealthy, fulfilled, legendary. You've been told to just visualize when what you needed was a brutal confrontation with your inner weakness. You've been told to align your energy when what you needed was to rewire your identity. So here's the call, stay until the end of this video, because in the final minutes I will hand you a tool, something most never discover, that can rewire your subconscious and permanently shift your magnetic field. But right now I need you to sit with this. You are not here to live an average life, and yet you've accepted average thinking, average energy, average hunger. Why? Because part of you is terrified, not of failure, not even of success, but of regret, of waking up one day 60 years old and realizing you lived the same year over and over again. And maybe the darkest fear of all, that your life never really mattered, that no one felt your presence, that your name will vanish when you do. But buried beneath that fear is a desire so deep it makes your chest ache when you're alone. The desire for legacy, the desire to walk into any room with unshakable presence, the desire to live with such conviction, such fire that even silence becomes your signature. You want self-mastery, you want peace, you want power not over others but over yourself. And I'm telling you, it's possible. The law of attraction is real, but it's not magic. It's a discipline, a frequency you must earn. And right now you're tuned to a frequency of distraction, of doubt, of emotional noise. You want to attract wealth? Become someone who cannot be broken. You want to attract love? Become someone who radiates self-respect. You want to attract destiny? Then stop living like an accident. Here's your wake-up call. The law of attraction doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your identity. And your identity is forged by repetition, by ritual, by emotional clarity under chaos. Until you learn to command your inner world, your outer world will stay chaotic, small, and reactive. This video is not for tourists of success. This is for the builders, the warrior, the ones who are done playing it safe. By the end, you will understand the true secret. Attraction is not a trick, it's a consequence. And the life you crave is already orbiting you. It's just waiting for you to become someone who can hold it. The law of attraction has been diluted into daydreams and wishful quotes. But the real secret, it's not about thinking, it's about tuning. You don't change your life by chasing outcomes. You change your frequency. The shift doesn't begin in the world, it begins in you. And that shift is violent, not soft. It requires the death of your current identity. Not the parts that serve you, but the parts that protect you from becoming more. The law of attraction isn't spiritual fluff. It's a psychological law rooted in discipline, clarity, and emotional force. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Nikola Tesla understood this, not as a concept, but as a code. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, he said, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. These weren't metaphors for him, they were mechanics. Tesla didn't attract innovation by accident. He became innovation. He trained his nervous system like an instrument, refining, sharpening, stripping away noise until only clarity remained. His life was built on sacrifice. He fasted to reduce distraction, rejected comfort to preserve mental purity, and spent days in silence just to hold the resonance of a single idea. He wasn't manifesting results. He was the result. He aligned every breath, every behavior, every thought to a singular frequency, and the universe, like a tuning fork struck by force, responded. And then there was Leonardo da Vinci, the man who bent space and time through his mind alone. Da Vinci was not just an artist. He was an engineer of thought, a sculptor of inner alignment. He didn't dabble in many fields because he was curious. He commanded mastery because he refused to fragment his attention. Every sketch, every page of his journals, every anatomical study wasn't a project. It was part of a singular obsession, to unify arts, science, motion, and being. That's frequency. That's what the law of attraction really looks like. He didn't try to become a genius. He built himself into one through layers of obsessive clarity, solitude, and relentless focus. Da Vinci's notebooks didn't just contain invention. They held intention. Everything was documented, visualized, studied, layered. He wrote backwards, coded his thoughts, trained himself in mirror logic, not because it was fashionable, but because it sharpened his cognitive frequency. This wasn't manifestation. This was mental sculpting. That's what the shift requires of you, to stop waiting and start shaping. Thomas Edison is another example. He didn't believe in failure. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. He didn't manifest success. He forced it into existence through repeated confrontation with reality. Each test that didn't work tuned his belief tighter. Each failed experiment stripped away hesitation. He didn't hope, he moved with relentless consistency. That's the vibration that pulls the future into the present. Tesla tuned his mind through stillness. Da Vinci through elegant obsession. Edison through kinetic repetition. They each unlocked the same law. The outer world bends to the energy of a mind that knows what it is. But if you walk through the world unsure, if you vibrate with doubt, if you second-guess your instincts, if your desires shift with the wind, then the world responds in kind, chaotic, inconsistent, unclear. You attract confusion because you live in confusion. You attract delay because you delay yourself. But the second you sharpen emotionally, mentally, spiritually, the second you commit to becoming someone who cannot be ignored, the world stops ignoring you. That's the shift. That's what they don't teach. They hand you affirmations when what you need is a funeral, an end to the indecisive, diluted, half version of you that smiles politely while life passes by. You can't attract greatness while tolerating smallness. You can't radiate power while holding on to powerlessness. And you certainly can't attract purpose while avoiding pain. Greatness costs, and those who attract it have paid in full. So ask yourself, what are you currently a match for? Not what you want, what your energy, actions, and habits actually invite into your life. If you're honest, you'll see the pattern. The low-level friendships, the scattered focus, the underwhelming results. They are not curses, they are consequences. They are perfectly matched to your current state. And here's the breakthrough. If you created this frequency, you can change it. Not by begging the world to give you more, but by becoming someone the world cannot deny. It begins with clarity. Who are you becoming? Not a list, a mission, a desire so consuming it pulls you into action before your mind can interfere. Tesla had it. Da Vinci had it. Edison had it. And if you want the law of attraction to work, truly work, you need it too. Not for a week, not until it's hard, but until it becomes you. Because attraction isn't some mystical trick. It's biological, psychological, spiritual. And when all three layers of you, mind, body, spirit, point in one direction, the world opens. Things shift. Time bends. People respond differently. But that only happens after you change. After you hold a frequency so steady, so relentless, that nothing in your orbit remains the same. That is your task now. Not to wait, not to wonder, but to tune, sharpen, align, become. Let the world keep wishing. Let others hope for miracles. You become the miracle, the signal, the force. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. The universe doesn't reward desperation. It responds to conviction. Here's where it stops being a concept and starts becoming a code. Because if you don't train your mind like a weapon, your life will be dictated by emotion, reaction, and noise. The law of attraction responds not to your hopeful peaks, but to your dominant patterns. It doesn't care about what you want once in a while. It reacts to who you are when no one's watching, on the dull days, the uncertain mornings, the nights when doubt presses down like a storm. The truth, attraction is mental warfare, and the battlefield is your focus. Let's make this practical. Your mind as it stands is not neutral. It is pre-programmed by years of repetition. Your parents' beliefs, your society's fears, your own wounded moments. So when you say you want success, peace, or greatness, your subconscious quietly replies, that's not who we are. And until that voice changes, nothing changes. Mental training is the process of replacing that internal resistance with identity-level clarity. And that begins with daily confrontation. You versus your own noise. Nikola Tesla used solitude not as escape, but as strategy. He knew that in silence, the mind reveals its patterns. and only through awareness can those patterns be rewired. He would sit for hours, days, even running complex machines in his imagination before ever building them. He trained his brain to believe that what it imagined it could manifest. That level of belief wasn't accidental. It was practiced, cultivated, sculpted through isolation, intention, and ritual. Now consider Leonardo da Vinci. His genius wasn't luck. It was engineered through layers of mental repetition. Da Vinci kept thousands of pages of notebooks, not just filled with sketches, but with questions, measurements, breakdowns, comparisons. He dissected not only the body, but the nature of thought. Each entry was a form of repetition, of refined alignment. Mental training to him was a process of layering understanding until insight became instinct. He didn't trust inspiration. He built systems of thought. You want to attract greatness? Then stop waiting for flow and start training for form. Form under pressure. Form in chaos. Form when you don't feel like it. Da Vinci obsessed over motion, how water flows, how birds fly, how light bends, and that obsession was discipline in disguise. He trained himself to see what others miss. That's what attraction really is. Seeing clearly when most are distracted and acting deliberately when others wait for signs. And then there's Edison, the man who turned failure into fuel. When asked if he ever felt like a failure after 10,000 failed experiments, he replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's mental conditioning at its highest form. Edison didn't just train his mind to endure setbacks, he trained it to transform them. That's the difference between a reactive mind and a trained one. The reactive mind sees defeat. The trained mind sees data. You must learn to do the same. When you wake up tired, when your bank account is low, when your relationships are strained, those are not signs to lower your frequency. Those are invitations to double down, to reinforce belief when the evidence doesn't agree, because that's the real test. Not whether you can visualize the life you want, but whether you can hold the identity that matches it when the world offers no validation. So here's your training. Every morning before the world touches you, before your phone feeds you someone else's dream, you declare, "This is who I am." And you name the version of you that already has the life you want. You speak it, you feel it, you write it, and then you behave like it's already true. This is not fantasy. This is neurological programming. When thought, belief, and emotion combine repeatedly, they form an expectation. An expectation is a magnetic force. Then you reinforce it through ritual. Tesla had silence. Da Vinci had obsessive study. Edison had trial through fire. You, maybe it's movement, or journaling, or fasting, or building when no one notices. Whatever the method, the message is simple. Repetition creates resonance, and the more you reinforce your dominant frequency, the more your life molds to match it. Mental training means building emotional armor before you need it, because pressure doesn't ask for permission. Pain doesn't call ahead, and opportunity won't wait while you gather confidence. You must train daily, relentlessly, quietly, until your mind obeys your will, until your focus no longer fractures, until you don't feel like the highest version of yourself, you are that version by default. This isn't about being prepared. The world won't go easy on you. Your subconscious won't bend easily. Your old identity will scream for safety. So let it scream, and move anyway. Let it resist, and rebuild anyway. Da Vinci didn't draw once and declare mastery. He repeated the human hand thousands of times. Tesla didn't dream once and change history. He obsessed until dreams became designs. Edison didn't try and quit. He tried, tuned, and returned again. You want results? Repeat. You want mastery? Repeat. You want alignment so powerful that reality shifts? Repeat with clarity until the shift happens inside first. Until your rituals are stronger than your moods, your life will stay fragile. You don't manifest what you believe when it's easy. You manifest what you hold on to when it's hard. Power without emotional mastery is self-destruction in slow motion. Because you can train your mind, you can sharpen your goals, you can repeat affirmations until your voice fades. But if you cannot master your state in the middle of chaos, then none of it holds. The law of attraction isn't sustained by clarity alone, it is powered by emotional sovereignty. This is the fourth chamber of transformation, the realm where average people fall and legends rise, And here we return to an eternal truth. Your life is a mirror of your emotional baseline. Look at your days, your responses, your inner weather. Do you remain grounded when things go wrong, or do you dissolve? Do you bend to circumstances or bend them around your inner calm? Emotional mastery is not about feeling better, it's about feeling deliberately. It's about no longer being a hostage to every thought, every person, every disappointment. Because here's the law, you only attract what you can emotionally stabilize. You might visualize abundance, but if the first sign of setback makes you spiral, you're not a match for it. You may crave love, but if you lose your center the moment affection is delayed, you're still ruled by lack, not presence. You attract not from what you want, but from what you can hold in your nervous system under pressure. Let's revisit the masters. Nikola Tesla faced ridicule, bankruptcy, sabotage. J.P. Morgan withdrew funding. Edison undermined him publicly. Yet Tesla kept working, kept dreaming, kept transmitting. Why? Because he had emotional distance from the noise. He had trained detachment, not coldness, but clarity. He didn't chase revenge. He didn't beg for support. He aligned with vision over validation. His emotional field stayed clean. And because of that, his frequency stayed magnetic. Now turn to Leonardo da Vinci, the most curious mind in history, but also one of the most emotionally regulated. His genius wasn't chaotic. It was composed, calculated. His notebooks reflect a mind trained not just in ideas, but in poise. Da Vinci studied not only the structure of bodies, but the movement of storms. He watched chaos without reacting to it. He observed the world not to judge it, but to understand it. That's what made his emotional mastery elite. He remained a student of everything, including himself. When others rushed to react, he paused. When others felt the need to be understood, he wrote backwards in code, unbothered by misunderstanding. That is emotional power, not needing to be seen to see further. He worked slowly on masterpieces like the Mona Lisa, not because he lacked inspiration, but because he refused to move until the energy aligned. He could hold tension without spilling it. Genius, yes. But more than that, stillness as strategy. And then there was Edison. A fire destroyed his entire laboratory, years of work gone overnight. He looked at the flames and told his son, "Go get your mother. She'll never see anything like this again." That's not delusion, that's dominance. That's emotional leadership under pressure. You want to attract a high-level life, you must hold emotional command when everything crumbles. Because the universe doesn't give to the strongest, it gives to the most stable. Emotional mastery then isn't optional, it's survival. And it begins with this: observe your reactions in the storm. When tension rises, what do? Do you lash out, withdraw, distract yourself, or do you breathe through it, stand in the fire, and feel without fleeing? Because that's where your true power lives. Not in controlling emotions, but in letting them move through you without distorting your identity. There's a technique I want you to build: emotional transmutation. When a wave hits disappointment, rejection, anger, you don't suppress, you alchemize it. Tesla did this in silence. Da Vinci did it through immersion in design, symmetry, and sacred geometry. Edison did it through stubborn output. You can do it through conscious ritual. When emotion rises, ask, what action reinforces my highest identity right now? Not the easiest action, not the most reactive, the one that holds your line. Maybe it's stillness. Maybe it's building. Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's saying less. Whatever it is, that action is your emotional anchor. Over time, you stop being pulled by emotion and start using emotion as fuel. Fear becomes alertness. Sadness becomes compassion. Frustration becomes precision. This is the highest form of attraction, emotional integrity. But be warned, this isn't easy. The mind rebels. It clings to comfort. It clings to limitation. And that's why emotional training must be non-negotiable. You cannot meditate once and expect peace. You cannot visualize once and expect manifestation. Discipline is the gatekeeper of power. And until your rituals are stronger than your moods, you will stay reactive, not attractive. So you train every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, you protect your mind like a soldier guards a fortress, because it is your only true weapon. It builds your thoughts. It filters your emotions. It shapes your decisions. If it's weak, your frequency leaks. But if it's strong, you become untouchable. Let others manifest casually. You train with urgency. Let others scroll. You journal. Let others react. You breathe, assess, and respond with clarity. This is emotional sovereignty. This is where the law of attraction becomes law, not theory, not inspiration, but law. Tesla achieved it through isolation, Da Vinci through reflection, Edison through obsession. And now it's your turn, because this isn't about becoming a positive thinker. This is about becoming an emotional warrior, someone who trains their internal state so ruthlessly that life cannot shake them, someone whose belief is so unwavering that the universe must respond. You only attract what you can emotionally stabilize. The universe doesn't give to the strongest, it gives to the most stable. Let's elevate now beyond attraction, beyond manifestation, beyond even mastery. Let's talk about permanence, because one day the applause will fade, the checks will stop feeling urgent, the goals will be met or not, but none of that will matter if you leave nothing behind. This is where the game becomes real. You weren't born to build a life that dies with you. You're here to make your name echo through time, through generations, through the unseen fabric of lives changed by your existence. And if you don't think that matters, you haven't yet tasted real hunger, the hunger for legacy. Legacy thinking begins when you stop asking, what do I want from life? And start asking, what will life remember because of me? Not in ego, not in vanity, but in reverence for this one brutal, beautiful shot at existence. The law of attraction, that was never just about cars, checks, or comfort. It was always about contribution. Because when your energy becomes aligned with service, when your vision becomes bigger than your own survival, your frequency explodes in power. Look at Tesla. He died broke, alone, misunderstood. But listen closely. The world is still catching up to his mind. Wireless energy, earth frequency, remote control. Tesla didn't build for trends. He built for timelessness. His vision wasn't profit, it was permanence. His inventions were blueprints not just of machines, but of mindset. Imagine what no one else sees. Work while they doubt. Leave something behind that outlives the hands that built it. And then there is Leonardo da Vinci, the original architect of legacy thinking. He didn't work to impress his patrons. He worked to impress time itself. Every sketch was a dialogue with the future. Every design, bridges, machines, flying devices wasn't built for immediate use, but for eventual awakening. He knew if he sculpted with enough clarity, if he recorded with enough precision, then centuries later, minds would still feel the vibration of his presence. He wasn't chasing recognition, he was encoding resonance. That's legacy. Da Vinci once wrote, as a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so a well-spent life brings happy death. That's not gloom, that's alignment. That's a man who lived each moment with full presence, because he understood something most never learn. Immortality doesn't come from being known, it comes from being felt through what you leave. That's the final evolution of attraction. Not what you pull in, but what you radiate out that remains. Edison lived this too. His legacy is the modern world. Light, sound, power. You can argue he was relentless, but you cannot argue his presence lives in your home, in your hands, in the socket on your wall. That's what happens when you build with obsession, not just for success, but for the soul of society. So what does legacy thinking do for you? It destroys excuses. It vaporizes delay. When you realize you're not just building for your ego, but for your grandchildren's dignity, everything changes. Your rituals become sacred. Your focus becomes tight. Your need to be liked, approved of, or comforted, it evaporates, because legacy doesn't wait. Legacy demands. You stop showing up to manage energy. You start showing up to deposit impact into your craft, into your work, into the values you teach silently through behavior. That's legacy. Not posts, not applause, but depth, integrity, rituals that no one sees but everyone feels through the results you leave behind. Legacy thinking also clears the fog. It forces you to simplify, to remove noise, to prune your life into precision. Da Vinci didn't paint 1,000 works. He painted few, but each carried eternity. Tesla didn't build everything he imagined, but the pieces he did left a blueprint of the possible. Edison didn't patent for glory. He patented for permanence. That's your invitation now, not to do more, but to do what matters with such force, such truth, such frequency, that the world can't forget you even if it tries. And don't be fooled. Legacy isn't about fame. Legacy is about force of presence. You don't need to be remembered by millions. You only need to matter deeply to one. One life altered because you chose to live deliberately. That one life could raise a new nation of thinkers. That one idea could outlive you by 100 years. That one habit you modeled, waking up early, thinking clearly, building ruthlessly, could become a family trait for generations. So I ask you, what are you really building? What frequency will echo after your voice fades? Because you will fade. That part is non-negotiable. But what you leave, that is your choice. And you can choose right now to be the one who builds something eternal. Not flashy, not viral, eternal. You weren't born to build a life that dies with you. Legacy is built in small, unrecorded moments of courage. This is the moment the noise fades. The theories, the teachings, the stories, all of them collapse into one question. The only one that matters now. Who are you becoming when no one's watching? Because everything we've built so far, vision, discipline, frequency, emotion, legacy, it all leads here, to this precipice, this edge, where you decide if you keep dabbling in potential or burn your old identity and rise. This is not inspiration. This is confrontation. Because you can't attract a destiny you're still too scared to embody. You have two choices now. Keep living as the echo of who you used to be, or break the damn mirror and walk into a future you demand. The world does not need another positive thinker. It needs someone who's dangerous to their excuses. Someone who doesn't just speak affirmations but moves like they are truth. Someone who can feel doubt, fear, and fatigue and still choose discipline over drama, clarity over chaos, purpose over popularity. Tesla wasn't a mystic. He was a soldier of frequency. He tuned his entire being to the future and paid for it with isolation, misunderstanding, and ridicule, and still he moved forward. Why? Because he knew the world wouldn't understand until it had to. That's what this takes. The willingness to be doubted, misread, dismissed. Because those who rewrite the world never look normal while doing it. Edison didn't wait for motivation. He moved from compulsion. An unrelenting inner code that said, I will die trying before I die wondering. He didn't care about balance or permission or polite pace. He lived in pursuit. That's why you remember his name. That's why you flip a switch and light appears. He built himself into a force that the world had to reckon with. And then there was Leonardo da Vinci. He didn't live loudly. He didn't need the world to cheer while he worked. He wrote backwards in code. He painted slowly, secretly, sometimes leaving works unfinished because they no longer aligned with the purity he demanded of himself. His life was a canvas of obsession and restraint. He mastered anatomy without formal training, designed flight centuries before it was possible, created notebooks of brilliance that still instruct scientists today. Why? Because he chose to build slowly, deeply, beyond the applause. He didn't chase fame, he chased form. And in that quiet pursuit, he became immortal. So what do you do with that? You make a vow, right now. Not to me, not to this video, to your future self, the version of you who already has the things you crave, who walks in rooms with stillness so sharp it silences noise, who doesn't manifest goals but moves with inevitability. Make a vow to that version, to stop betraying them with your delays, distractions, and deluded choices. You don't have time to wait for motivation. You don't need more proof. The mirror is already showing you the cost of postponing your power. You want more? Then become more. Build the rituals, sharpen the mind. Guard your energy like royalty guards a throne. Start living like your future self is watching, because they are. And every choice you make either brings them closer or kills them slowly. Here's the line that divides the average from the architect. Most people react. Builders command. Most people wait for signs. Builders become the sign. Most people try to feel the frequency. Builders become the frequency. Which are you? This is your final frame. The closing shot before the credits roll. Imagine it like a film. You standing alone, no audience, no applause, just silence. Just choice. In one hand, comfort, in the other, fire. Which will you carry into tomorrow? Because you cannot hold both. And the moment you choose fire, the kind that burns illusions and forges identity, you become untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get sharper, heavier, clearer. That's what makes you magnetic. That's what turns thoughts into gravity. That's what makes the law of attraction bend not in theory, but in force. Most people try to feel the frequency. Builders become the frequency. You don't attract a destiny you're too scared to embody, so this is your charge. Go build the identity that makes your desires obsolete. Go become the kind of person who doesn't chase outcomes, but creates environments where those outcomes can't help but emerge. Stop praying for alignment, become alignment. Stop asking for signs. Be the one others read as a sign. Let your discipline become louder than your doubt. Let your energy become heavier than your history. Let your presence become so grounded that the world rearranges itself, not because you begged it to, but because it had no choice. This is your moment. Make it immortal.
Now we seal it, not in theory, in rhythm, in resonance, in repetition, because everything you've heard, everything you've felt, everything that shook something loose inside you, none of it matters if it doesn't sink. The conscious mind listens once. The subconscious, it learns through ritual, through rhythm, through the repeated return to truth. That's where the law of attraction either takes root or withers into more motivational noise. So here's what we do now. We program it in. Understand this. Your subconscious is not logical. It is literal. It accepts what you feed it frequently. It doesn't ask if the thought is empowering. It doesn't ask if the emotion is old. It doesn't care what's true. It just records what's repeated. That means your life is the result not of what you hope, but of what you rehearse. So, if you rehearse fear, you manifest hesitation. If you rehearse doubt, you create delay. But if you rehearse strength, purpose, precision, you attract a life sculpted by clarity. You begin living as the signal. Tesla didn't just imagine, he repeated. Thought experiments looped for weeks, until they carved his brain like software code. Edison didn't just create, he obsessed. 10,000 failures weren't failures, they were affirmations of future inevitability. And Leonardo da Vinci, he didn't just think genius thoughts, he engraved them. Thousands of notebook pages, diagrams, mirrored writing, anatomical dissections, coded hypotheses, not to publish, to program. His pen was not decoration, it was calibration. That's why his work echoes centuries later, because he didn't just write ideas, he embedded identity. That's what you must do now. That's the level we're after. So this is what I want you to do, tonight, and every night for the next 7 days. Before you sleep, play this message again, not with distracted ears, but with intention. Let the words slip past your guard. Let them sink below your daily resistance. Let them rewire the frequency you operate from. Because nighttime is not just rest. It is recalibration. It's when the gate to your subconscious swings wide. And if you feed it the right fire, it begins to burn with your vision. You are not who you were at the start of this video, not if you felt it, not if you stayed, something inside you remembered. Your power, your edge, your responsibility. And now it's time to lock it in. Make this your nightly ritual, like brushing your teeth, but for your identity. Let these words hit your system again, and again and again, until the identity of your future self is not an idea, but a reflex. Until discipline becomes natural, until focus becomes emotional, until presence becomes your signature. Because that's what this has always been about. Not a motivational hit, not an inspiring video, a transmission, a code meant to shake the sleep out of your cells and rebuild your subconscious as a weapon of clarity. You've trained your whole life, knowingly or not, to shrink, to hesitate, to dream softly. Now train yourself to broadcast, to walk like thunder, to speak like direction, to exist like a lighthouse. Unmoving, unmissable, untouchable.